You sought to disqualify Ms. Willis from serving as counsel and prosecuting Mr. Roman's case.
I did.
Okay. Can you pull up that motion? That motion was filed here in January, I think it was January 8th of 2024.
Yes.
What was your motion to disqualify based on?
It was based on a number of things, but it was based on mostly the fact that Miss Willis and Mr. Wade had a romantic relationship, and they had been traveling, and he had been paying for a lot of that travel. So there were a couple different things. She had not followed the statute. So the statute I referenced earlier, 15-18-20, said that you had to have county approval. She didn't have that. So that was one thing. There were also...
You had figured that out through your financial records?
Yes, I had figured that out through my financial records, through open records, through reviewing all the Board of County Commissioners. And I actually, to that motion, I attached, just on this issue, I actually attached a document showing how independent special counsel would normally be appointed, or I'm sorry, special counsel, because I found one where, and I think it's exhibit, let's see. It's exhibit J. I found one where Fulton County had actually been asked to approve a line item for an independent contractor agreement. And so this, I used it as an example of what normally would happen.
Was that for an attorney?
It was for an attorney.
So she's saying in pleadings now that she's not required to get county approval, but in the past, for people other than Wade, she had gotten approval?
This is actually the county attorney. So
Okay.
This document is the county attorney. I do not believe she's ever gotten approval for anybody. Okay. And her filing said she's doesn't. I mean, her filing, I at the break I was looking at it. I mean, she said that that I incorrectly contend that the appointment exercised by, and in parentheses, a state constitutional officer must be followed by an approval of the local government's Board of Commissioners. And she says over and over again that I'm just wrong, that she doesn't have to because she's a state constitutional officer. So that was their position, that she doesn't have to.
So is that one of the grounds for your motion to disqualify these, let's just call them financial irregularities, that she had not complied with the state law or county policy of getting prior approval?
Yes, that was one of the primary bases. But then I also reviewed case law and saw, the conflict of interest. And, our motion, the theory, basically just to sum up the motion, is that essentially he's getting paid all of this money and they're not going through the proper procedures. And I go through it in the motion. I talk about how he didn't file an oath, which is rare. I'm one of those.
Didn't file a what?
He didn't file an oath of office. Yeah. And I'm one of those people that I always, when I first start a case, I always make sure that everything is all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. So I always pull that. Anytime I've only ever had special counsel twice, and it's been people who were not paid, who were district attorneys in other jurisdictions who took the case on, which is the normal process in the state. But I've always pulled that just to see that they're sworn. That's something that's important to me. And I couldn't find it, so I did open records to the probate court, to the Superior Court, and there was no oath of office filed.
Sworn for the special assistant district attorney?
Yes. If you're going to be inside of a grand juries are highly regulated. I can't just go in a grand jury. None of us can just go into a grand jury. So you have to be a sworn officer of the state to actually be in there, particularly to present evidence. And so I wanted to see if he had taken an oath. And that's something that, you would file. It should be publicly available, not something that's really, highly contentious or secret, and there wasn't one. So, once I learned that, I was like, why are they not filing an oath? This is odd. There's no public approval of these contracts. There's no oath of office filed. This is different, what's going on. We later found out that he had taken an oath, but nobody had filed it,
okay.
And the law requires, there's a statute that requires you actually file it.
I have looked at that. So the statute for a district attorney, their oath, when they are sworn in that position, says, I do swear that I will faithfully and impartially and without fear, favor, or affection discharge my duties as district attorney and will only take my lawful compensation.
Yes.
So help me God. Did Ms. Willis sign her oath that swore she would not take any unlawful compensation?
Yes, she did that, and then she also filed some disclosure forms that are required. There's financial disclosure forms that Fulton County requires that you file every year, and you have to disclose if you've received any gift over $100. So from anybody doing business with the county. And Fulton County is I used to be a Fulton County employee. They are very strict on those types of things. So anytime there's anything that could be construed as a gift over $100, and I've gone to lunch with prosecutors before who wouldn't let me pay for lunch because they're like, what if it's over $100, So people do take that pretty seriously.
So that would apply to Ms. Willis would not be allowed to receive gifts from whom?
From anybody who was, and I actually believe I attached it as an exhibit. It's basically anybody who is doing business or seeking to do business with Fulton County.
Okay.
So, and it's one of those.
That would include Mr. Wade, obviously, then?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
And that makes sense because that's one of those provisions that's supposed to, be guarding against honest services.
Like anti-kickback statute.
That's exactly what
Hire
it's based on.
somebody as a vendor and they give you gifts in exchange.
Yes, and so they require that you disclose that every year. It's signed under oath. You have to file it with Fulton County.
So